Welcome to another episode of Data Center Pulse. We're here at the 4th annual Data Center Pulse Summit here in San Jose, California, and it's held in conjunction with the Green Grid Technical Forum. So with me I have
Richard Donaldson with Data Center Pulse.
And Jeremy Rodriguez with Data Center Pulse.
And we're going to be talking about the service efficiency metric. So at the summit today, this was the second topic we went into. And I would say it was probably one of the most lively discussions we had. Now we can't share exactly what the details are, but we can tell you what's going on inside of the group and how compelling it was. Okay, so what we're trying to accomplish, if you look at the top 10 list over the last couple of years, is how do you have a miles per gallon measurement for data centers? All up infrastructure, how do you actually measure the efficiency or the effectiveness of that infrastructure itself? Lots of people have spent a lot of time on this topic. Okay, so when we put this back into the group and started discussing it, it was first to introduce the concept. And so we did that, and then we went into the debate. So what was your guys' take on that discussion?
Go ahead, Richard.
I think from my perspective, it not only was trying to find a lowest common denominator in how to express the MPG, or miles per gallon, for a data center, but also to tie the infrastructure to the business.
Yes.
And finding a way to make that kind of holistic view of the actual IT load, the infrastructure load, the cloud load, whatever everybody wants to talk about, but how that applies to the business. And that was probably the single biggest defining moment for the metric today, but also led to the most discussion.
Yes.
Because it confused everybody the first time around, right?
Yeah, and that's really to up-level the conversation, to have that business discussion about your technology and why your technology change might drive your business.
That's right.
And so if you think about what conversation, what audience we have, this is the C-suite. This is not the engineers, this is not the facilities guys, it's not the IT, it is the all up. You want to be able to have that business level discussion, and you want to be able to have something that measures the effectiveness of your infrastructure, your engine.
That's right.
Right? The actual miles that you're driving and the gallons you're consuming to do it. And so the data that we actually came from one use case and put into this framework or this model started yielding some pretty interesting results.
Well, not only the results, but also taking what kind of PUE did for the industry 3 or 4 years ago and evolved it into a metric now that actually is universal to everything, including the business. And so where PUE kind of evolved, this metric will evolve. And so I think that's where the discussion came out today, because no one's seen this before.
Right.
No one knows what it is. But it's that kind of groundbreaking metric that's going to reshape the industry and drive even further efficiency into the business now, not just the data center.
And if you think about it, the PUE metric took 5 years. So it was introduced in 2007. And there's still people still questioning exactly how it's done. But the Green Grid did a great job in actually now formalizing what it is and helping people understand how they should measure it. Okay, but PUE is one component. It's the facility's perspective. And a lot of data centers, especially larger ones, is getting to diminishing returns with the 1.0 sub PUEs that are coming back in. And what we're looking at is the left side of the decimal now. But it's that plus facilities. And if we can't go into the details, but really it's around performance, it's around cost, and it's around the environment. And all of those are dimensions of this. But you got to get down to the single one that is the core, that you can say, I actually can measure what that is, and then I start making those extensions across that. So, and I thought it was, I always can see when a debate is good by how many people are actually participating in it.
And not only participate, but move to the front of the room.
Yeah, we literally had people walk up, and then they walk to the screen and actually
type. You knew it was interactive at that point when they started touching the screen and saying, well, what about this and this and this?
Really wanted to understand what was behind it, why we thought of it that way, how they could take it back to their business and have a conversation about it. A PUE for business that includes technology, that you can have a conversation with your C-suite. How awesome is that?
Right. Yes. And I think that you nailed on something there. Everyone who came up was internalizing what this metric meant to them.
Right.
And these are big companies with big platforms, big responsibilities. They've never seen anything like this, but boy, it triggered a lot of enthusiasm, or potentially confusion.
Initially confusion.
Or maybe even a bit of paranoia, as I am going to be rated by this now, and make sure to define this the proper way.
The other thing was you have engineers being engineers, and so and what they do is go back and make sure, is this bulletproof? Are all these pieces going to work? And what we kept having to pull back was, this is a business level conversation. The audience is the C-suite.
That's right.
The CFO needs to get it. The CIO needs to get it, and the CEO needs to preach it. because as you start to deliver for your business, what does the engine look like and how efficiently is it running? That's what this metric is really meant to do. Now, how we do the details underneath it is where the engineers are going to get deeply involved. But we have a basic framework of being able to measure that.
Right.
Okay.
And that framework is going to evolve. That's something that people need to also understand. At the forefront of this metrics introduction to the industry, it's going to take a life of its own. But it's that kind of groundbreaking that allows sort of Data Center Pulse to take this metric, bring it to our community, and then bring it to the industry at large. That's going to make a big impact.
Right.
And from my perspective, whatever we do, I want to do with real data. So when we pulled data back in for Project Mercury into the release with the green grid, that was to say, here's what the real PUE measurements are. And it's not just on the coldest day of the year, it's on the hottest day of the year. This one is, we've got a user, there's actually a company that's come back and put in a year's worth of data. And they've been able to measure those pieces and now apply it to that metric. And that's really interesting because that's what we reviewed today. And so there's real data up on the screen and real people talking about exactly what that meant.
And not only did that use study have the data that came in, but it also talked, or that case study, the participant talked about how it affected the business already.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's fundamental to this because it's a business conversation. And the right players, as we get out with more information about this metric, the players involved at that case study were the right ones that we're talking about. It was the C-level, it was the up conversation, it was unifying because they got a glimpse into how to make positive change in the business through a metric like this.
And as we actually had discussion about it, we found that a lot of us are measuring things very similarly, right? So you can look at the metric and go, I can do that too. I can start out with that. And there might be some things that I need to understand and explain and detail, but I can start out with that and start measuring right away.
Right.
And it was very compelling. So I think we won't keep teasing you with what is coming. But the point of today's discussion and the collaboration session really was to get industry peers to understand the concept and be able to provide input into it. And as we continue a few more of these conversations, we'll start to actually still release this information back out to the industry. So thank you very much, guys.
Absolutely.
Appreciate your insight. And thank you for watching Data Center Pulse. And stay tuned for additional episodes.